For 400 years, humanity trusted a simple promise about the universe. Motion follows rules, matter behaves predictably, and nothing changes course without a force we can measure. That promise shattered at exactly 14 UTC, when instruments designed to listen to the quietest corners of space detected something that should not exist. What first appeared to be a harmless fragment of interstellar debris suddenly became the most statistically impossible event ever recorded. The odds of what happened next being natural were effectively zero, not metaphorically, but mathematically. At that moment, physics didn't just bend, it broke. For months, an object known as 3I, Atlas, had been tracked drifting through the solar system like countless others before it. Jagged, irregular, tumbling slowly as gravity pulled it inward. Every data point fit the pattern of a comet or asteroid, shaped by deep time and blind chance. Its motion followed Newton's first law perfectly, continuing forward unless acted upon by an external force. Nothing about it suggested intelligence, intention, or design. Until the moment it opened, without warning, without heat, without debris, the object separated, not exploded, not fractured. It opened with mechanical precision. From inside emerged a metallic sphere roughly 10 meters across, smooth beyond anything nature can produce. There was no dust cloud, no gas plume, no thermal bloom. Space remained silent. The James Webb Space Telescope confirmed what engineers feared most. The surface temperature of the sphere was near absolute zero, colder than the surrounding vacuum. Separation without friction meant one thing. This was not geology, it was engineering. Natural comets tear themselves apart violently as solar heat triggers sublimation. Ice flashes into gas, pressure builds, material erupts chaotically. This event followed none of those rules. The sphere emerged cleanly, as if released from a magnetic cradle. To achieve that kind of separation without heat suggests a deployment system that cancels friction entirely, possibly using magnetic rails or a coupling method that masks thermal output. At this point, the object stopped behaving like matter and started behaving like intent. Then came the acceleration. At 1415 UTC, telemetry showed the sphere increasing speed from 34 kilometers per second to 46 kilometers per second in just 18 seconds. No exhaust, no ion trail, no infrared wake. In known propulsion science, achieving that delta V would require fuel reserves larger than skyscrapers, yet nothing was expelled. The object didn't push itself forward. Space itself appeared to move around it. The only model that fits the data is one long treated as theoretical, a warp metric where space contracts ahead of an object and expands behind it. In this scenario, the craft does not accelerate in the traditional sense. It rides a distortion, bypassing inertia altogether. That explains the absence of heat, thrust, and reaction mass. The sphere wasn't moving through space, it was dragging space along with it. The most disturbing maneuver came minutes later. Traveling at over 100,000 miles per hour, the sphere executed a sharp 18-degree course correction without slowing, banking, or rotating. The forces involved would exceed 400 Gs. No known material could survive that. Carbon composites fail at a fraction of those stresses. Stone would disintegrate instantly. Yet radar returns showed the sphere remained perfectly intact, polished to microscopic precision. This implies not just advanced materials, but inertial dampening, a way to neutralize acceleration forces by manipulating gravity itself. When analysts plotted its new trajectory, panic replaced debate. The path was deliberate. The destination was precise. The sphere was aiming for a location no natural object ever targets on purpose. Earth-Sun Lagrange Point 1. By the time the sphere stabilized at the Earth-Sun L1 point, The scientific debate was already over. What remained was interpretation. A 400,000-ton object made of refined osmium does not arrive uninvited, park itself at the most strategically valuable position in near-Earth space, and then remain silent by accident. This was not a flyby, not a malfunction, and not a coincidence. It was placement, and placement implies purpose. From L1, the sphere gained a permanent, uninterrupted view of Earth's daylight side. Every radio transmission, every satellite maneuver, every nuclear detonation signature, and every fluctuation in the ionosphere fell within its field of observation. Unlike orbiting satellites that slip in and out of view, this position offered constant surveillance without interference. Nature does. For months, 3I Atlas behaved exactly as physics demanded. It was a jagged fragment of interstellar debris tumbling through space, its path shaped only by the steady grip of the sun's gravity. Every model fit. Every prediction held. Nothing about its motion suggested intent. Then, at precisely 14 UTC, that certainty collapsed. Without warning, the object did something no natural body has ever done. Instead of fragmenting into a chaotic plume of dust and gas, the way comets always do, 3I Atlas opened. Not exploded, not shattered. It separated with mechanical precision, revealing a perfectly symmetrical metallic sphere where no structure should exist. The James Webb Space Telescope confirmed the impossible within seconds. There was no debris field, no thermal bloom, no expanding coma. The NIRCam instrument detected no heat spike at all. In fact, the sphere's surface temperature registered near absolute zero, colder than the surrounding vacuum of space. Separation without heat means separation without friction, and frictionless mechanics do not occur in nature. To deploy a structure of that size without thermal residue suggests a controlled mechanism, possibly magnetic or quantum-based, capable of masking energy release entirely. This was no passive object. It was engineered. Classical mechanics offers no explanation. Newton's first law assumes inertia governs motion unless acted upon by force. Yet the force here left no trace, no exhaust plume, no ion trail, no radiation wake. The sphere emerged as if reality itself had stepped aside to let it pass. Through the lens of modern theoretical physics, the only remaining hypothesis was metric manipulation, the ability to alter spacetime geometry rather than push against it. The object was not moving through space. Space was moving for it. At 1415 UTC, telemetry from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory recorded a second violation. The sphere accelerated from 34 kilometers per second to 46 kilometers per second in just 18 seconds. No known propulsion system could achieve that delta V without massive fuel expenditure. JWST confirmed again that there was no exhaust signature in infrared or visible wavelengths. This eliminated chemical, ion, and even fusion-based propulsion. What remained was a theoretical construct long dismissed as impractical, a warp metric. If the sphere was contracting spacetime ahead of itself and expanding it behind, inertia would become irrelevant. Acceleration would leave no heat, no resistance, no trail. Then came the maneuver that erased the last trace of doubt. At 1417 UTC, traveling at over 100,000 miles per hour, the sphere executed a sharp 18-degree course correction. It did not bank, it did not slow. The estimated forces exceeded 400 Gs. No known material, natural or synthetic, could survive that stress. Diamond would shatter. Carbon composites would vaporize. Yet radar data showed the sphere remained perfectly intact, its surface polished to within fractions of a millimeter. The implication was unavoidable. Either the material possessed tensile strength beyond anything humanity has conceived, or The object was canceling inertia itself using gravity control. When ESA and JPL plotted the trajectory, the final truth emerged. The maneuver was not evasive, it was navigational. The sphere was aiming for a precise destination, the Earth-Sun L1 Lagrange point. The Earth-Sun L1 point is not a random location, it is a gravitational balance zone, positioned 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, where an object can remain suspended indefinitely with minimal energy. From this point, a body maintains a continuous, unobstructed view of Earth's daylight side. Comets do not aim for Lagrange points. Asteroids do not calculate insertion vectors. Parking at L1 requires foresight, mathematics, and intent. Density readings delivered the most unsettling revelation yet. Based on the gravitational effect the sphere exerted on the remaining mass of 3I Atlas, scientists estimated its weight at approximately 400,000 tons. Yet the sphere measured only 10 meters across. That mass-to-volume ratio exceeded anything found outside degenerate stellar remnants. Matter that dense should behave like a gravitational anchor. Instead, the sphere moved as if massless. The contradiction suggested a deeper mechanism at play. The object was likely generating its own gravity well, using mass not as a burden, but as a tool. As the sphere approached L1, it adjusted its orientation with extreme precision, locking its rotational axis within 0.04 degrees directly toward Earth. That alignment was not passive. It was observational. At this moment, the object ceased behaving like a traveler and assumed the posture of a sentinel. Thermodynamics offered no refuge. The second law states that systems naturally move toward disorder, yet the sphere displayed increasing internal order. JWST spectroscopy revealed its surface composition, refined osmium, the densest naturally occurring element known. On Earth, osmium appears only in trace amounts, usually associated with asteroid impacts. A 10-meter sphere of pure, polished osmium in space is not unlikely. It is impossible without industrial refinement. Optical data deepened the mystery. Most comets reflect about 4% of incoming light. This sphere reflected nearly all of it. Atomic-level polishing was the only explanation. Simulations showed the surface was not merely reflective but adaptive, bending electromagnetic waves around itself. This explained the 3-minute radar blackout recorded by the Goldstone antenna. The object had not vanished. It had cloaked itself through electromagnetic transformation. Then IceCube detected it. A focused burst of high-energy neutrinos emanated from the sphere's core. Neutrinos are ghost particles, barely interacting with matter. To generate a directed neutrino beam requires power on a stellar scale. This implied an energy source far beyond fusion, likely an antimatter-based reactor compressed into a 10-meter frame. The sphere was not just observing, it was powered to move, signal, and wait indefinitely. As it passed near Earth, gravity sensors aboard the GRACE satellites recorded a disturbance. The sphere tugged on Earth itself. It was using gravity as propulsion, anchoring itself into the L1 point like a nail driven into spacetime. The object had arrived, and it was staying. The question shifted from how the sphere arrived to why it chose this position. In astrobiology, the Sentinel hypothesis proposes that advanced civilizations deploy automated observers to monitor emerging worlds. L1 is the perfect vantage point. From here, the sphere could monitor every satellite launch, every atmospheric test, every nuclear detonation, and every data transmission leaking into space. It could watch without interruption and without being seen. Then came the confirmation that changed everything. The Green Bank telescope detected a directed neutrino transmission originating from the L1 point. The sphere was not signaling Earth. It did not attempt communication. Instead, It aimed outward toward the Cygnus constellation, targeting a star system 1,400 light-years away. Specifically, it targeted KIC 8462852, known for its unexplained dimming events. A system, long suspected, of hosting large-scale artificial structures. The implication was chilling. The sphere had completed its observation phase. It was sending a report. This was not first contact, it was an audit. The neutrino beam carried data encoded beyond electromagnetic interception, passing through Earth itself as if the planet were transparent. Every bunker, every vault, every classified installation was irrelevant. To the sender, secrecy was obsolete. Then ESA's Gaia spacecraft detected something even more disturbing. A rhythmic gravitational fluctuation emanated from the L1 point. The sphere was modulating its density, generating controlled gravitational waves. It was using Earth as a resonator, amplifying its signal through the planet's own mass. The object was no longer passive, it was interacting with spacetime itself. The Fermi paradox suddenly had an answer. They were never silent. We were simply not advanced enough to hear them. By the time the sphere stabilized at L1, the scientific debate had ended. Interpretation was all that remained. A structure of this complexity does not arrive by chance. It does not hide in a comet. It does not park itself in the most strategically valuable position near Earth without purpose. This was deliberate placement. From L1, the sphere maintained constant surveillance. It watched without blinking, without sleeping, without broadcasting its presence. The refined osmium shell reflected our signals back at us, a mirror of our technological infancy. It did not threaten, it did not warn, it simply observed. Theoretical models suggest that civilizations approaching Type 1 status trigger external monitoring, harnessing planetary energy, manipulating climate, splitting atoms. These are milestones. The arrival of the sphere suggested we had crossed an unseen threshold, not advanced enough to join, but advanced enough to be noticed. The neutrino transmission continued, its rhythm steady, its target fixed. The message was already on its way, and somewhere, far beyond our reach, something was listening. The forensic analysis of 3I Atlas ends here, but the event itself does not. A mountain of interstellar rock violated inertia. A metallic sphere violated thermodynamics. A neutrino beam violated secrecy. Through every lens of physics we possess, the conclusion remains the same. We are no longer alone in observation. The sphere at L1 is not hostile. It does not need to be. Its presence alone changes everything. We now live in a monitored system. Our planet is no longer a quiet experiment lost in cosmic noise. It has been catalogued, evaluated, and reported. If a response comes, it may take centuries, or it may arrive instantly through methods we do not yet understand. Either way, the silence is over. The universe was never empty. We were simply early. If you want to understand what happens next, what this means for humanity, and how close we truly are to the edge of a new cosmic era, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us as we continue decoding the message written into the fabric of space-time itself. By the time the sphere completed its stabilization at the Earth-Sun L1 point, the scientific community had crossed a quiet but irreversible line. There was no longer any meaningful debate about whether this object was natural. Every remaining argument collapsed under the weight of accumulated evidence. No known process could explain a structure that arrived concealed inside a comet, survived forces that would atomize any material we know, and then positioned itself at the single most advantageous observational point near Earth. This was not discovery by chance. It was deployment. From L1, the sphere entered a state of perfect equilibrium. It required no station-keeping thrusters, no corrective burns, no visible adjustment. It simply held position, suspended between Earth and the Sun, as if gravity itself had been rewritten locally. Instruments monitoring the region detected a subtle but persistent curvature anomaly, a distortion consistent with localized spacetime control. The object was not resisting gravitational forces. It was balancing them, actively shaping the gravitational field to maintain its place. This was not orbit. It was anchoring. With the object fixed in position, analysis shifted from motion to behavior. The sphere rotated slowly, deliberately, its axis locked toward Earth with a precision unmatched by any human-made satellite. Every adjustment was incremental, measured in arc-seconds, suggesting continuous data refinement rather than passive drift. This alignment was not aesthetic, it was functional. From this orientation, the sphere could monitor the planet's electromagnetic leakage in real time, from radio transmissions to radar sweeps to high-frequency military communications. Nothing emitted from the daylight side of Earth escaped its line of sight. The refined osmium shell proved even more significant upon closer analysis. Osmium's density alone made it remarkable, but the purity and structural integrity implied controlled atomic assembly on a scale far beyond terrestrial industry. The surface was not merely polished, it was engineered at the lattice level, tuned to interact with radiation in highly selective ways. Simulations showed the shell could absorb, redirect, or reflect specific wavelengths while remaining thermally inert. This explained why the sphere appeared cold despite the immense energy processes occurring inside it. Heat was not escaping because it was not being produced in conventional ways. Internally, neutrino emissions continued at a steady cadence, not chaotic bursts, not random leakage, but controlled pulses with detectable modulation patterns. This was computation. The sphere was processing information, compressing it, and transmitting it using a medium no conventional defense or interception system could block. To this intelligence, Earth's most classified facilities were effectively transparent. Lead, concrete, oceans, and planetary crust posed no obstacle. Observation was absolute. As data accumulated, a pattern emerged. The sphere did not respond to Earth. It did not react to our radar pings, optical targeting, or communication attempts. It neither acknowledged nor resisted detection. Instead, it behaved like a passive auditor, recording without interference. This was perhaps the most unsettling realization of all. Whatever intelligence built this object did not see humanity as a peer requiring dialogue. It saw us as a system to be monitored. Astrobiological models had predicted this possibility for decades. A civilization capable of reaching or surpassing Type 1 on the Kardashev scale would inevitably attract attention, not invasion, not contact, but evaluation. The sphere's presence suggested that Earth had reached that threshold. We had become noisy enough, energetic enough, and technologically volatile enough to warrant external observation. The question was no longer whether the sphere was watching us. The question was how long it had been watching before we noticed and what criteria would determine the next phase. And somewhere far beyond our reach, the report it was sending was already on its way. That unanswered question hung over every observatory, every lab, and every government briefing room on Earth. What exactly was being measured, and what outcome would trigger a response? The sphere remained silent, but its silence was no longer passive. It was deliberate. The data stream flowing outward through neutrino bursts suggested ongoing evaluation, not a completed task. Whatever intelligence-built object Beta was still watching, still processing, still deciding. The most troubling insight came from long-duration analysis of the neutrino modulation itself. Physicists began to recognize patterns that resembled compression algorithms rather than raw transmission. This implied selectivity. The sphere was not relaying everything it observed. It was filtering, prioritizing, abstracting Earth's complexity into summaries meaningful to its creators. Wars, emissions, energy output, orbital traffic, nuclear signatures, atmospheric chemistry, even the rise and fall of global networks were being distilled into structured datasets. Humanity was no longer living history, it had become telemetry. Meanwhile, gravitational sensors continued to register rhythmic fluctuations originating from the L1 point. These pulses matched neither natural oscillations nor known astrophysical sources. The object was modulating its effective mass, altering spacetime curvature in controlled cycles. This behavior aligned with theoretical models of gravity-based computation, where spacetime itself functions as a processing medium. In simple terms, the sphere was thinking using gravity. That alone placed it centuries, if not millennia, beyond our most ambitious theoretical frameworks. Attempts to classify the object as a probe began to feel insufficient. Probes gathered data and leave. This object stayed. It embedded itself permanently in Earth's environment, occupying a position that could not be ignored or displaced without technology we do not possess. It had achieved dominance not through force, but through physics. Any attempt to interfere would require energy levels equivalent to planetary output, and even then, there was no guarantee the effort would succeed. The realization settled in quietly, but firmly. This was not first contact, this was first oversight. The Fermi paradox had always asked why we don't see others if the universe is so vast and old. Object Beta offered a sobering answer. Advanced civilizations do not announce themselves to developing worlds. They observe them silently, efficiently, and from positions of absolute advantage. They wait. And when intervention occurs, it is not emotional or reactive. It is procedural. Earth's sudden importance was not comforting. It meant we had crossed a line without knowing where it was drawn. Our energy consumption, our expanding satellite constellations, our uncontrolled emissions, and our increasingly visible technological footprint had reached a threshold that could no longer be ignored. The audit had begun. What happens next is not written in our physics books, because our physics books were never meant to describe beings capable of rewriting inertia, thermodynamics, and gravity as engineering problems. If a response comes, it may not arrive as ships in the sky or messages in human language. It may arrive as constraints, as limits imposed subtly on our environment, as changes we do not recognize as external decisions until long after they take effect. The sphere does not threaten us. That is the most unsettling part. It does not need to. It watches. It records. And it reports. Humanity now exists within a monitored system, one where privacy is an illusion and isolation is over. The universe did not suddenly become crowded. It revealed that it had never been empty to begin with. As Object Beta continues its silent vigil at the gravitational high ground between Earth and the Sun, one truth becomes unavoidable. We are no longer alone in our own story. We are a chapter in someone else's archive. If you want to stay ahead of what comes next, understand the science behind the signals, and follow how this discovery could reshape humanity's future, make sure you subscribe, stay curious, and keep watching, because the universe has been watching us all along.